The time is 12 o'clock. Today's April 13th. This is our board meeting. What I'd like to do is get started with a roll call and test everybody's audio, and then Madam Chair, I'll hand it off to you to open the meeting. Let me see. Commissioner Justice, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
All right, great. Thank you. Commissioner Seal.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Commissioner Long.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Peters.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Gerard, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
And I think we're waiting on Commissioner Eggers, who is not quite here yet, but it'll be your call whether we start the meeting.
Well, I think we should just go ahead. Barry, do you want to introduce this?
Yes. Good afternoon, members of the commission. So today we're asking you to vote on the resolution that was attached to the agenda, and I can certainly have the county attorney talk about any of the details of that. The idea being that there was a question raised as to the state of the emergency of whether can be a delegation to the chair to extend that. When we did that, full well, the law clearly allows for that. However, it allows for it under a situation where the members of the commissioner are not available. Here we have a technological solution that we have employed recently with Zoom, and out of an abundance of caution, we ask that you come together as a commission and do that and make that extension at this meeting. What we will do is then each time when we meet, we will make work sessions just a regular meeting. So at a work session or at a DCC meeting, we would then place on to do further extensions at those appropriate times.
Barry, I have one question. If we assume, and we're not necessarily, but if we were to assume that the order ran out, do we need to restate the old? I see in the resolution that we've restated the additional orders, but do we need to restate the original order?
I would ask that the county attorney address that directly. And you're on mute, Jill.
When we took a look at this, I agree with everything the county administrator said. We do think that we had the authority to have undertaken the delegation. However, as the administrator said, in an abundance of caution, we're bringing this forward to you today. Don't want to cast any confusion in the community already under a stressful situation here, and don't want to contribute to that. So to be abundantly clear, we've phrased your order as an order declaring an emergency, extending an emergency, ratifying an emergency. Again, we don't believe there was a gap, but to be clear, we just basically want to cover all bases here. And as you'll see, what we've stated under paragraph 2 is that all of your prior orders are ratified, restated, and extended throughout the local emergency. If we wanted to, we could also add the word readopted in there, just to kind of add another word in there. But again, don't believe from a legal perspective that the emergency ever expired, but to be perfectly clear and to avoid any confusion, we thought we would cover every base there. And we do think that this does that. One of the things that was set forth in the resolution signed last week was a provision where we said that all prior orders issued were again reaffirmed, including whether they had any sort of different expiration date or anything of that, anything that might have cast any other confusion as to the expiration. So we did cover that in the order that was signed last week. So we believe by restating that and ratifying that, we're covering all those bases as well to make sure that all of your prior orders that were not just extensions of the local state of emergency remain in effect as well.
Okay, thank you. What was the word you used that we could add if we wanted to? Readopt?
Readopt. And I would suggest if you want to use that we will insert that in paragraph 2 on the resolution that you have before you.
Does anybody? Yes, Commissioner Seal.
Sorry. Okay. I did have one question,
And that is on the third, number 3 on the second page. All persons within Pinellas County must comply with the emergency orders of the governor or the county. Shouldn't that be and the county instead of or? Since we put in different regulations due to COVID.
We can certainly make that change. I think it's covered again either way. And frankly, section number 3 there is just stating the obvious. But again, since we were here to clarify and avoid any kind of confusion whatsoever as to the applicability of all of the orders that have been issued through the state that apply here in Pinellas County. So in other words, the governor's orders and the county orders, we did go ahead and put that in there. We can certainly make that change.
Please do.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Welch.
Thank you. So the paragraph right above that, number 2, is where you're going to add readopted, Jewel?
That would be my suggestion. I would suggest that we say ratified, restated, readopted, and extended.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, do we have any public that would like to speak?
At this time, members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item should virtually raise your hand by pressing *9 if you are on the phone, or by pressing the raise hand button in the Zoom application. And Madam Chair, it looks like we have 5 members of the public that wish to speak. I'd start with the first one that raised his hand, Mr. Tom Rask. Mr. Rask, if you'll go ahead and state your name for the record and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rask, can you hear me? You might be on mute. Mr. Rask?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tom Rask, unincorporated Pinellas County. First, I want to remind all those listening, they have a right to offer verbal comment on any matter that this county commission votes on, also during a declared state of emergency. As for the proposed extension of the state of local emergency, or SLE, as I will call it henceforth, the resolution title reads as follows: order declaring ongoing state of local emergency and extending state of local emergency. I think this is unwise for at least 2 reasons. Either a lawful and in-force SLE exists or it doesn't. One commissioner told me that the wording in the resolution was driven by quote, need to cover everything possible. But to me, it looks like it mainly is driven by a desire to cover all backsides possible. The second reason is that the resolution doesn't actually then declare a new SLE, so the title isn't accurate when it says it's declaring it. If a new SLE is declared and will only be in force until this coming Friday at 3 p.m., then I support it. Going forward, I urge the commission to meet on Fridays or Mondays if it prefers, and decide whether an extension is warranted based on the facts before you at that time. All your other public meetings have been canceled, so I don't see any reason you can't meet at a set time every week. As for the word readopted, the question in my mind, I'm not a lawyer, but is then wouldn't you have to revote on all those? It seems the word incorporated, that you incorporate, that might be better. In any event, if Mr. Zimmett, the PSTA general counsel, was on this call, he might say I'm trying to substitute my judgment for that of the board, but I'm driven in part not just by a desire to keep this legal, but government, not just your government, but government at all levels is trying to substitute their judgment for our judgment and how we go about our lives. So it's very important you get these things straight. We know that this meeting is held pursuant to an article that was published on TampaBayGuardian.com on Friday evening. A recognition that citizen input caused this to come before the commission would be appreciated. You don't need to mention the citizen's name. It's just a matter of recognizing that the citizens have an important part in the process of government. Because my time is limited, those so inclined could visit TampaBayGuardian.com for further details. I also would like the county attorney's office at some point to address the issue of physical quorum presence and whether Governor DeSantis' executive order 20-91 is in fact legal. I first became concerned about this, and I wrote to the county attorney about it, and we need some specificity on that. That is all.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Madam Chair, our next speaker is Shelby Harbachuk. Let me unmute. Ms. Harbachuk, can you hear me? Mr. and Mrs.? Shelby? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
thank you. My name is Shelby Harbachuk, and I own a dog grooming business in South Pasadena. This morning, I came into a card from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department telling me that I cannot remain open because we have been deemed not essential. And I would like to plead my case as to why we should be considered essential. Dog grooming is part of your dog's care, their ongoing good health. If a dog's toenails don't get clipped regularly, they curl around and grow into the pads of their feet. If their hair is not cut regularly, it becomes matted to the skin. And then I have to go in and totally shave the dog to the skin. And there could be hot spots underneath. There could be flea infestations underneath. It's seasonal allergy time right now. And a lot of my dogs, my clients, are suffering with seasonal allergies, and grooming them on a regular basis is something that really helps to maintain their overall health. I express anal glands, which is something that is necessary because without that being done on a regular basis, these dogs can get infections, which could require vet care or even surgery to have it fixed. We have been complying with CDC guidelines in the sense of we're not allowing people to come into our shop. We're under lock and key. We're wearing gloves and masks. I've separated myself and my employees so that we are more than 6 feet apart. And I just feel terrible for all of my clients who I had to call this morning and tell them, I'm sorry, I can't help you, and you're on your own. I really feel that the care of these dogs is being overlooked by people by deeming dog groomers not essential when it is indeed very essential. I guess that's it.
Madam Chair, our next speaker is Scott Schuyler. Scott, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. For the record, would you please spell your name and state your address, please?
Yes, sir. It's Scott Schuyler, spelled S-C-O-T-T. Last name is S-C-H-U-Y-L-E-R. My
Thank you,
address
sir.
is 20. Yes, sir. My address is 2863 6th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay, you have
33712.
3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my concern was kind of along the lines of the last speaker. I noticed in the county code that it's been deemed non-essential for dog groomers, and I just think that's really dangerous. I actually had an appointment with a dog groomer and it got canceled. From what I'm reading federally, it is deemed essential. If you're going to go by guidelines, you would think the federal government would do some research and find that it is essential for dogs to be taken care of properly. So since the last caller did do such a good job, I will leave mine there and won't take up more of your time. Thank you very much. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, our next speaker is Ms. Sharon Calvert. Ms. Calvert, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, spell your name, give us your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
SHARONCALVERT. I live at 340 Pinellas Bayway South, Terra Verde.
Thank you, ma'am.
One of the other meetings that I had listened to, the commission had brought up that you have 8 o'clock calls like almost every morning and you receive a lot of good information. What I feel like I'm not getting as a resident in Pinellas County is perhaps some of that information. As you continue to extend your emergency orders, it's being done without providing me or the public what are the metrics. I mean, I'm watching the FDOH tracking website, which they've done a very good job of providing information down to the county level, even the zip code level. But the information, you know, it needs to be, I mean, people need to understand that information and what exactly it means and what metrics are you exactly wanting to achieve before there's a discussion, even a discussion, because I haven't even seen a discussion of relaxing anything. And for example, you know, opening up some of the public spaces. When I rode my bike down to Fort DeSoto recently, I saw that you actually now just installed a gate closure. I mean, it was closed, but you know, the bike trail's closed, and you know, what could you do to open some of those public spaces even at a limited capacity? The other issue I have is the county has closed all the pools unless it's a single family home. And I reside in a 16-unit condo, private property. Only 13 units have people in them at this time, and we have no vacation rentals. So I can look across my canal and I can see the pools where 10 people properly distanced can be in it, but yet I'm being told that I can't even myself get in my own private property condo pool. So again, I'm just asking for what metrics are you tracking? What is driving your decision making? And I understand that there's the state level as well, but there's certain things that you're also doing in the county. And I think that communication, I just like to see those discussions occurring when you're continuing to kind of just rubber stamp your previous orders. And again, I appreciate that you are starting to do the weekly calls, but I also ask that you can't just look at the numbers, you know, total numbers. I mean, that by itself isn't entirely the story. So there's other numbers, and you know, what does that mean? So I just hope to hear some of that information, you know, as you continue having these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Speaker, our last speaker is Axel David. Mr. David, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind, say your name, spell your name, and give us your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian and Madam Chair. My name is Axel Davids. First name is AXL, last name David, DAVID. I reside at 400 Pennsylvania Avenue in Clearwater.
Thank you.
Problem. I wanted specifically to speak on the topic of beach closures, which I feel is an emotional overreaction by this board. While many people in the early phases of this pandemic, primarily spring break crowds, did not take precautions seriously, that all changed once the public had a clear picture of the severity and impact. As evidenced in the helicopter footage from PCSO, beachgoers began to self-police and maintain proper distance. The sheriff provided an articulate and compelling presentation for keeping the beaches open. It's beyond me why arguments from the chief law enforcement officer of Pinellas County, which were based in facts and video evidence, were universally ignored by this body. It is extremely unhealthy, both mentally and physically, to put citizens on indefinite house arrest with extremely limited opportunities for fresh air or sunlight. I strongly feel that the public will maintain proper distancing and that we have law enforcement resources in place to ensure compliance if the beach is reopened. I ask you to look at the bigger picture here and consider a plan to safely restore access to the beaches. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Commissioner Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I happen to agree with the 2 previous speakers about the pools and the beaches. I really think that we should start considering opening them at least for exercise, for running, for walking. There is police presence on the beaches all the time. And I do believe that the citizens in Pinellas County are being responsible. They understand the dangers and that they are taking the responsible acts to keep their distance and be safe. I think opening up pools at condos is important. A lot of senior citizens need to be in the pool. It helps with their arthritis. It's good for their exercise. And I honestly believe that everybody would be responsible. So I'd really like this board to consider opening up the beaches and the pools for the citizens for recreation and exercise purposes.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Commissioner Eggers. I'm
oh,
sorry,
I'm sorry. There are no more public speakers, Madam.
Commissioner Eggers. You're muted.
Sorry, and sorry for being late. I just couldn't get on the system. It always takes one not to be able to do what you're supposed to be able to do, so I apologize. In any event, I think there's some merit to this. I do know that one of our many things that we're looking at is how do we start to ease restrictions, or how do we start to amend the things that we've done so that we can carve out how it fits in our county. I would argue that there's no other county quite like ours. It's surrounded by water on all sides. So we're unique in many different ways. And so as it relates to access for exercise, I think it makes sense. You can compare the waterfront of a beach to the trails that we use in terms of people trying to get out. I do think, however, that the parking spaces that are abundantly available for people to come from other counties and to from other areas needs to be looked at if we do go down that road. And the idea of congregation, I think, is another one that we need to look at. So somebody sent us an email that says, open up the pools, but don't leave the decks available so people are starting to congregate around the pool. And the beaches might be the same thing. We leave the waterfront available so people can walk along or run along the waterfront, but yet not be allowed to congregate on the beaches like beaches are normally used. So I do think that there's merit to that, and it stays in line with the spirit that we're trying to use in our other exercise of access too. So I do think that needs to be looked at a little bit. And I'd just like to maybe, this whole dog grooming thing is really, I understand all of it, having had a dog myself, and I would just like to understand a little bit more about that as it relates to public health before we at least get together on Thursday, maybe do a little bit more research on that. I think we continue to carve out little areas for each county to be a little unique and different, and we are that. So just like to hear more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Long. Commissioner Long. Commissioner Long.
Yes, I'm having a little issue here with people beaming in and people beaming out. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to state that I am sensitive to the comments made by Commissioner Peters and support some of that. And thinking that through, I find that I'm thinking of two different things. One is the beaches and the pools, but the other coins, what issues would that cause with regard to enforcement and fairness? That's number one. And the other issue that I agree with Commissioner Eggers on is the issue with regard to dogs. There are some dogs who have different layers in their coat, and if they're not groomed properly every 6 to 8 weeks or so, they do get horrible sores on their body. And when groomers try to take care of that, then they're dealing with hot spots, and especially as it relates to their little feet and the hair that grows in between them. So I think there's some merit to looking at that a little further, and I wouldn't mind having that discussion on Thursday as well. I do think the enforcement piece, though, about the beaches is something that I would want to hear from Sheriff Bob about, because he and his fellow law enforcement people are the ones that would have to deal with it, especially as it relates to parties and that kind of thing that the young people want to do. I see Barry shaking his head.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Welch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Commissioner Long's comments. We get so many of these requests that I don't want to get into piecemealing, because the next meeting will have a different constituency calling in. And there are several different ones. I know Barry doesn't want to hear me talk about car washes at all, but there have been several. So I just want to make sure that we do this in a very, strategic and planned out way. The sheriff mentioned this morning that he's already seen an uptick on the beaches. So I just want to make sure we've got a plan in place and that we don't rush to try to piecemeal, draw down the restrictions. And that's my only concern.
Well, I would agree with that. I also have questions about the car washes. I don't understand an automated car wash being a danger, but I know you have a difficult problem. Anybody else? But I'm willing to wait until Thursday to talk about that. Commissioner Peters? And then
I just want to concur on the dog groomers. Currently, my dog just had an anal gland infection, and because I couldn't go to the groomer, I had to go to the vet, and it was a couple $100 versus significantly less had I gone to the groomers. So I think there is cause to help the groomers in opening up just for the health and safety of the animals. So I just wanted to put that out. And then clarification, as far as beaches and pools, am I hearing that you want to wait till Thursday on that, or is that something we could even include within this resolution?
I personally would like to wait until Thursday till we can have this conversation with the sheriff. Commissioner Seal?
And I concur with what the chair just said. I would prefer to wait till Thursday to allow Barry and the sheriff to potentially draft something that would be very comprehensive and understandable. And I too am concerned about the pools, the beaches, and the groomers. I've heard from florists. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I also would like to make sure that our numbers of COVID-19 cases don't climb over the next couple of days. So giving us a little bit of space and time, I think, is valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Akers?
Yeah, just on the same front before Thursday, and I do think that's the wise thing to do. Obviously, Barry, I know you would immediately get a hold of our partners along the beaches, make sure they're aware of the thing that we're considering, and actually what we might be considering, so that they're lockstep with what we're doing. But yeah, I'd like to hear definitely from the sheriff on that before we take action. So, and Thursday would be fine with me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. If there's nothing further other than the one change we made, or was it two? One.
On
I
paragraph
have
2.
written down 2 changes.
Okay.
That would be to add readopted to paragraph number 2.
Right.
And in paragraph number 3, on the last line there, have it read governor and the county.
Okay, great. Well, I'll enter. Yes, Commissioner Welch.
I'd move approval, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have a I'm sorry. Right. I have a motion from Commissioner Welch, second from Commissioner Long. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, you can raise your hand if you want. Are there any in opposition? Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Barry, is that all we need to do?
That's all the business for today, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Dave. Commissioner Akers, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was not a part of the first part of the meeting because of my my inabilities, but there was a comment made by Tom Rask about whether we shouldn't be meeting on the or Fridays or Mondays to more adequately address the week to week. And I was wondering if there was any thoughts from our attorney as it relates to not meeting too early to extend it beyond a calendar week, because So anyway, just a thought on that before, just before we leave.
Your local states of emergencies right now, if you recall, the first one that you adopted was done so on a Friday. So you essentially have been extending 7 days from Friday to Friday ever since that time. You are currently scheduled to have a work session this Thursday. So the plan would be to bring this before you again on that Thursday. Now, the following week, you already have a meeting planned for Tuesday. So the plan was to bring this back before you on that Tuesday to take advantage of the fact that the board will already be meeting. And I do believe from a legal perspective, since you are within that 7-day period, it's appropriate to extend it for another week, even though it doesn't expire until Friday. Keep in mind that even if you do extend it, if for some reason within that 3 days between Tuesday and Friday, the emergency goes away, which is unlikely, but possible, you can always rescind it. Of course, you'd have to have another meeting to do that, or you could let it naturally expire on that Friday. So that is at least the current plan going forward, is to have the board address this at each of your upcoming meetings, recognizing that in some weeks that's going to be on a Thursday, and in other weeks that's going to be on a Tuesday.
Okay, so you're comfortable with that as long as we're taking action within the week and to move forward as far as the following week.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Anybody else have an idea about that? Okay, well, we can also talk about that again on Thursday.
And commissioners, also just remember that, the governor's office is also looking at that. So if there are situations that changes, we can always regroup and have an additional meeting.
Right. Okay. That being said, I guess we're adjourned. Thank you very much.